short of people, so I think we'll go ahead. I want to welcome everybody to our second installment of the SCORE program. Just kind of bringing a date on a few of the changes, and if you're new to the SCORE program, this will really help. We'll show you where things are and how to import and set your results up so everything works fine for you. So we ask a lot of you to go ahead and download the program. So what you do is go to the website, under the download, click the download button. And under the downloads, you have a software, and you just kind of right click on the software and you save the link. I like to save it to my desktop. Hit save. I already have one that I'm going to go ahead and replace. So when it gets on your desktop, it's a zipped file. You must absolutely unzip it properly. If you right click on the folder, you will hit extract all. We're going to extract it on our desktop. The name of that folder right now is actually a what am I trying to think of? A encryption that the website likes to do. So when the file opens, uncompressed, you now see the SCORE folder. It says 2018 SCORE 4.25.1. What I do then is just drag that over to my desktop. Mine says replace. I've got a lot of folders here from last time. Copy it over. After you've taken it out, what I do is go to that folder that I downloaded, throw it away because it's now empty. So now I have the SCORE program sitting on our desktop. It's uncompressed, so it should work properly, but what we're going to do is launch the program. We're going to go into the preferences. I'm going to set the name of the program, of the contest. From here, we're going to look at the file system. We're going to set the region. You need to set your region that the contest is in. Mine's the North Central. So that's the only thing you do on the basic page. Everything you leave alone. Go to the file system. I like it to auto save. It defaults.
Hey guys, what about custom classes? What about custom classes? Don't we want to remove mini IAC?
What?
No, you don't have to remove those custom classes, no.
There's nothing to remove. You may have, for one, have seniors in your
Yeah,
contest.
no, but I'm saying we know we have seniors, but I'm saying we don't have mini IAC.
Well, it won't come up if you don't enter scores.
Okay.
It's not available to you unless you create rounds and enter scores. So when you hit for your results, that one will not be checked because there's nothing there to print. Okay? So you don't need to change anything. Under file system, like I said, autosave, I like to take that down a minute just to make sure it's saving itself all the time. There's nothing else on this page you need to click. It's all preset for you. Calculations. Everything's here that needs to be clicked. You don't change the scaling of the unknowns. You're going to scale the top one, flight scores to 1,000. There's nothing else here you need to click. The drop schedule is already set for our drop schedule that is the legal drop schedule for our Mac. There's no reason to change anything here. Under include, there's nothing here to click. I like to leave all these clicked on. This is where later we'll get into the percentage scores. That's the only new thing on this page right now. So you leave it as is. Points. This is the IRPS points. Normally it's just left up to your regional director to make sure that this is clicked. There's no reason to have it on your results unless the CD wants to have that on just to show you how many points you're going to take to your IRPS when the contest is over. From here, you don't reset. You'll just hit apply, hit OK. It's telling you to restart. This is what we want to do. We're going to close the program, and once it's ready to reboot, we're going to boot it again. As long as our contest appears in the upper left-hand corner, then everything is good to go. If that comes up blank again, no contest, no preferences set, then you probably did not uncompress the file. You're working from a compressed file. And when you close the program at the end of the day, everything you entered will be gone. Does everybody understand that? This will
Yes.
keep you out of a lot of trouble. If you just close the program when it asks you to close it, reopen it, and make sure your contest name is up in the upper left-hand corner. From here, I'm going to turn this over to Samantha. She's our scoring expert. She'll help you out from here on.
Just one note: if you're using a Mac, that score, the name of the contest will be in the middle.
Okay, thanks, Tony. I'm not used to score program on a Mac, so that's good to know. Okay, from here, I'll get the screen from Mike. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, so when you get out of preferences, the first screen that pops up, it's the setup pilots screen. Mine is blank, so I've started a new program. We're going to keep with the in the top left corner, there's the 2018 Central Indiana IMAX. So since the name of the score program is there, I know I am not working out of that zip folder. One of the new things a few years ago with the score program is with the new website, your RD is able to send you a file that can be uploaded into the score program for all pre-registered pilots. That has helped scorekeepers a lot, because then you're not at the morning of the contest spending most of the morning entering your pilots. I know, I keep smaller contests, but on bigger contests that could be pretty tedious and time consuming. So I'm going to show you guys how to import the pilot folder. So in the middle, you're going to hit import from file, and then you've got to find your folder. What I do is when I receive this file, I actually save it in the score folder that I am using for that contest. That way it's not in a different place where I have to go and search for it. It's actually in the spot with the contest if there's ever any questions. So we'll go to 2018 score 4.25. And what it'll be called will be export for score. It's an XML file. So you click on it and you hit open. So it says I'm about to import 6 files. So far, when this file was sent to me, there were 6 pre-registered pilots on the IMAC website. So you go ahead and hit OK. So it imported my 6 pilots. So down the left hand of the screen, you'll see all the 6 pilots that I've got. You'll see their AMA number is first, their name, and then their class, and then you will see that it says not activated. When you import this file, all of those pilots will say not activated. So let's say to make Nick an activated pilot, saying he actually showed up at the contest. In the middle of the screen, there's a button that's pressed that says pre-register only. We unclick that button to make him a registered pilot. What automatically comes in with the imports, his AMA number, his IMAC number, his name, his class, and what his frequency is. So all of that is already entered with the import for score folder. If you don't receive this folder, have your CD contact the RD to get it, or you can contact the RD to get the file to do this, and then that way you don't have to spend that morning registering all pilots. So is there any questions on the import file, how to bring it in? Okay, so we know each contest, not everybody pre-registers because they don't know, whether they're going to make it, and they don't want their name to show up and then them not come in. So to create a new pilot, you just hit create new pilot, and you type in their AMA number, and then you type in their IMAC number. So we'll add me as a pilot for this contest. I'm going to fly the intermediate class. I'm going to fly against Nick, and I'm going to have this spread spectrum. So that is it on entering a new pilot. The missing pilot panel, we just discussed this the other day. It would probably be better, some planes do not have the missing pilot panel. Unless they're going to fly that plane the whole contest, you can check this box. But let's say they start with a plane that does not have a pilot and panel, and something happens to where they have to fly someone else's plane instead of their own. This needs to be checked on each sequence, scored on each round instead. That way, their whole contest is not penalized with a missing pilot panel. It's only the sequences that was flown and the rounds that was flown without a missing pilot or panel. And there will be a button when you enter scores to the side that you will be able to check for missing pilot and panel. And I also wanted added when you add information in these boxes, you need to make sure and tab out of the box. If you tab out of that box, the information will stay. If you do not tab out of this box, the next time that information will not show up. And we'll show you that when we enter flight scores, because that's really important when you enter the flight scores. So you need to make sure and tab or enter out of the boxes to make sure that the information stays.
Or hash sign.
Also, too, I know some of the seniors, I'll show you, Walt Royster is a senior here in the North Central. When I imported him, it also clicks the seniors box. I do not have to click the seniors box to have him show up on the senior points. So is there any questions on setting up a pilot? Everybody doing good?
Can you just go over the missing pilot and panel again?
Yes, the missing pilot and panel that's sitting here in the middle of the screen. If you know that, Sportsman through Unlimited must have pilot and panel in their planes for their sequence, or there's a penalty assessed. If nothing happens and you know that's the plane that's going to fly all weekend, you can click this missing pilot and panel. But we discussed the other night, there's always instances where if maybe they started the contest with a plane that had the missing pilot and panel, but then an engine wouldn't start, or they dead sticked or something, and another competitor allowed them to fly their plane, and that plane had a pilot and panel, it would be better to click this button for each sequence that you score when you start entering flight scores.
Which will make more sense when we're actually entering scores.
Correct. Yes, we'll show you. I'll recap that when we go enter scores again. But this
Okay.
Yeah, that way they're not penalized the whole round.
It can go the other way too. They can, start with a pilot and panel, no problem, and lose an airplane, get a backup airplane out of a trailer that doesn't have a panel and pilot. So it can go both ways, and when you're entering scores, you'll see there's another place to do this round by round.
Yeah, when we get to that, you'll see in the inner flight scores, because on this panel here, if you click that and then you're entering flight scores, and that pilot has to change planes and now does have one, you're going to have to come back to here to set up pilots, unclick that, so that you can actually enter some rounds of having a pilot and panel and some rounds of not having a pilot and panel. So what she was telling you is if you click this box, this will apply to every round in the contest. It won't matter what you click in the inner flight scores, because it won't change until you've unclicked this. Does that make a little more sense? And this does not apply to basic. So.
Okay. All righty.
Yeah, we'll recap that when I get over to inner flight scores. We'll show you what we're talking about.
Yeah, just show her real quick that this does not apply.
Let's just assume for now all of our pilots have pilot and panel.
Yeah.
Okay.
And scores will show them where, if they change planes without, that you would check mark it.
Yeah, I've brought up the inner flight scores tab for Nick. And if you look under the judge sheet -1, there's a box that would be checked for missing pilot and panel when you enter their flight score.
Okay.
So this will recap right here when we get to the entering the flight scores.
All righty.
Any more questions? Okay. So we got our pilots set up. We're going to go over to the sequence tab. That's the first tab at the bottom there. When you bring it up, all your known sequences for the year, which would be 2018 for this year, and the unknown basic sequence is automatically set up in the score program. You'll see the type is a known, and each one, the class will change. The K factors change. And then your freestyle is already set up too, just in case you have anybody fly freestyle in your contests. These sequences here will not be changed unless it's alternate. And I'll show you how to import the alternate sequences in a minute. But most contests, you fly the original sequence. If it's an alternate sequence contest, it will specify on the registration process for the contest on the IMAX site. Unless otherwise told, it's just these basic sequences. And the unknown basic sequence is already set up because what they fly a known sequence, but it's stored as an unknown sequence. So we had this preset. That way the scorekeepers did not have to re-enter the basic sequence and then create it as an unknown. So these was automatically, we wanted to go ahead and include that. That way there is no confusion on it. So my husband flies the intermediate class. So when you pull it up, the K factors are down the side. There's a description of the maneuver. And then there's the scoring rules. So when scoring, 1 through 10 is on half increments, 7.5 and 8.5, 9.5. Those are all set up on halves increments. So if you enter a 7.6, that's not going to work. Or a 7.4 won't work. If a judge accidentally writes a 7.4 as 7.3, I round down. Anything below a 7.5 gets rounded down. Anything above a 7.5 gets rounded up. But you have to keep consistent across all contests. That doesn't happen very often. Most judges know that it's in half increments. When you get down to figure 11 and 12, that is your sound and your airspace control. And they are in intermediate intervals. So you're not going to have no halves. They should be whole numbers. They should be a 6, a 5, a 10, a 9. There should be no 7.5 on these. There are some judges that go ahead and put like 7.5 or 6.5. In my scoring, I automatically round them up. Because by the time I get the score sheets, sometimes we're already into another round or the judge is flying. I mean, and you don't want to have to go bother that pilot to say, hey, I need to know if you meant for this to be a 7 or an 8. So I automatically, if they put a 7.5, I automatically round it to an 8, and I write it on the score sheet and circle it and write my initials. That way it knows that's what I have changed. One thing I did, too, want to point out with 11 and 12, the sound and airspace control. Each class has a different K factor for this value. So we're going to look at the known sequence. So for sound and airspace control, the K factor values are 3 and 3 for the basic class. The sportsman class is a 6 and a 6 for the sound and airspace control. Intermediate is a 9 and a 9. Advanced is 12 and 12. And unlimited is 15 and 15. So each class has a different K factor value for the sound and the airspace control. Does anybody have any questions on the sequences that's already in preset into the program? So there's some contests that I keep, a few of them, that fly the alternate sequences. I know for the intermediate class, the alternate sequences, they pull out the roller because some of the fields they can't fly the roller. So for the alternate sequences, you don't have to pull an alternate sequence off the website to get the K factor values. We're going to import a file that's automatically in the score system directory. So we're going to hit import file. We're going to find the score program folder, which is mine is labeled 2018 score training. There's the score folder. So we're going to go to the data folder. This is where all your data is stored for the score program. So we're going to double click on it, double click on the directory folder. Let's see, nope, I'm in the wrong folder. I need sequences. So we'll start again. We're going to go find the folder that the score program's in. And then we're going to go to 2018 sequence files. So there's the 2018 basic unknown sequence stat file. You will not need this file. It's automatically preset into the program. This one is all the alternate 2018 sequences data. So this includes the two classes that will not have an alternate sequence, along with the other 3 classes that does. So I click on this folder and import it in. It says you're about to import 7 sequence records. 7 existing records will be replaced. So it's pulling in the alternate sequences. It's pulling in the 2 sequences for the classes that don't change and the unknown. So we hit OK. And it imported OK. So now we have the basic and sportsman sequences that stay the same. And then we have the alternate sequences pulled in for intermediate, advanced, and unlimited. So for the alternate sequences, you don't have to go back and edit the known sequences that's already in there. We can just go in, import from the SCORE program the alternate sequences, and then they're automatically set. Are there any questions on importing alternate sequences? Okay, some of my contests, I receive the unknown sequences in the morning. Some of my contests, we fly the unknown Saturday night. Sometimes we fly them Sunday morning. So if I have already received the unknown sequences, I go ahead and enter them into the SCORE program. So we're going to set up an unknown sequence for the intermediate class. That's the class that Nick flies. So we're picking on him again today. So you hit create new sequence. The type, you click unknown. Class is intermediate. Which rounds, leave this blank. You're only going to fly 1 round. And this is just for the results to pull which flight that will print on the results page. There's no sense in changing this. Only special contests fly more than 1 round of unknowns. So the which rounds tab will not be touched. I go ahead, knowing my K factors are halves 1 through 10. I go ahead and move 11 and 12 to the intermediate intervals for the numbers. So when they hand you the unlimited or the intermediate unknown, you just enter the K factors that's listed on the sheet. And I'm just going to enter numbers. I don't necessarily have one in front of me. And then after I enter a number, I hit tab.
It's going to be a heck of an intermediate.
Yeah, 481 points. Which that shouldn't be right. It should be down closer to the 300s, but we'll change that one. So I've entered all my K factors that's on my unknown sequence sheet that they gave me. You have to, the scorekeeper has to enter the sound and the airspace control. So basic for sound and airspace control is 3. Sportsman for sound and ACS is 6. Intermediate is 9. Advanced is 12. And unlimited is 15. So we're setting up an intermediate unknown sequence. So my sound will be 9. And my airspace control will be 9. The sound needs to be put first, airspace control second, because when you look at a score sheet at the bottom, the sound is first and then the airspace control is second. We don't want to get them reversed, or when you go to just entering numbers, you're going to reverse the numbers because the judges won't always score those two, the sound and airspace control. They won't score them the same. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So we need to make sure we stay consistent with the score sheet. So then I'm going to hit tab to get out of that box. So that is entering the K factors for the unknown sequence. So to double check to make sure that your K factors are entered right, below you see a total K of 449. When you look at this number to the unknown sequence sheet, it will not match. So you need to come on more to the right under the scoring rules, and then it's got a total K of 431 plus 18. The 431 is the maneuvers 1 through 10. So that K factor number there should equal the K factor that's on the unknown score sheet, on the unknown sequence sheet that you've received. That number should match. 18, you add 18 to that for your sound and airspace control. So you need to make sure that you enter the correct K factor value for the sound and airspace control for each unknown sequence that you enter. So then the 431 plus the 118 equals for a total K factor of 449. And that's entering an unknown sequence. One thing I want to recommend is don't clone a known sequence to change it for an unknown sequence. That's just too much entering. You just need to create a whole new sequence. But clone this sequence, I've only used in invitational contests. I have not used that anywhere else. Delete this sequence. There's not really no sense in deleting a sequence. There's not any that you're going to delete. Freestyle can stay there. If you have no pilots that fly freestyle, it's not going to show up on the results. If there's no scores entered, it won't show up. Do we have any questions on how to create a sequence?
Yes, I have, Samantha. About the unknown, which round? If this is good for one unknown, what about if we have a contest more than one? Let's say 3.
Okay.
Should we keep the? How do we check the boxes?
Okay. So the type stays the same, the class stays the same. So which round, like let's say this is round 1. We'll leave it at round 1. So you're going to put 1 of 1.
Gotcha.
So this flight will stay the unknown sequence for round 1. So when you look to the left on all your sequences that's listed, you will see that there's 1 of 1 for the unknown intermediate sequence. This way the system knows when you go to create an inner flight scores, round 1 will only be scored off this sequence.
And the second one will be 1 of 2 or 2 of 2?
No, it'd be 2 of 2. You want to make sure it is set to go 2 of 2.
Okay, and the third will be 3 of 3 and 4 of 4.
3 of 3. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions? Doug, Mike, is there anything you guys want to add or anything?
Well, we can do it here, or we can do it when we're entering scores, but about not tabbing off your last entry.
Okay. Yeah, I'll probably do that in the flight scores because that seems to be.
It applies both places.
Yeah.
Yeah, it applies for setup pilots and setup sequences.
Yeah.
I've never actually ran into that problem on inner flight scores unless that's a new issue.
It's happened for a while if you don't hit tab or get off that number. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Inner flight scores used to take care of itself.
Yeah.
It was the others you had to worry about. So, no, you're doing good. Go ahead.
Okay. Does anybody have yes.
Yeah. So basically, if I'm wrong, and I write 1 of 1, that can be okay. That can be okay too. So if I'm flying only one unknown sequence.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be like 2 of 2 or 3 of 3.
No, because when you go, if it's a regular contest where you fly one unknown sequence, if you put 2 of 2, when you go to enter round 1 unknown sequence, you're not going to have no K factors there. There's not a sequence there for the score program to look at.
Okay.
To be able to score against.
Yeah, Adi, it's just a way to separate the unknowns when you fly more than one. If you're going to just fly one unknown, then you don't really need to change it. It doesn't need to have a specific number beside it.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's very important because when we go to Italy in June, we fly 3 unknowns, and that's a very important thing to know.
Yes, at the Nats, you know, there's unknowns flown every day. So that is where the which rounds tab really comes into play. And then
okay.
Yeah, and then in enter flight scores, I'll be able to show you to make sure it double checks to pull the right K factors for that round.
Awesome. Yeah, that's very important.
I've only used the more than unknown rounds at the Nats and at at Clover Creek's Invitational. That's the only 2 places I have ever done any more unknowns than more than 1 round.
We did them this year at the World Qualifications at the region.
Yeah,
we had
the World Qualifications.
Yeah, like I've said, in Italy we're going to fly 3. So that's very important. I need to talk to Manrico about it because I'm going there to help them with the scores and everything else. So that's very good info.
Mm-hmm. And if you don't create, and you'll have you know, unknown sequences, you'll have 3 of them, but then you'll see the one of 1, 2 of 2, 3 of 3. If you don't label them like that, it's going to throw the score program into havoc. It's going to pull wrong, and it's going to create way off results.
Yes, that's a major thing. That's why it's very important to realize that. And
anybody else have any questions?
I remove a mask on Billy, 6-year-old Great Dane, which is a large breed dog. Billy was brought in by a woman who rescues Great Danes, and she's been fostering Billy.
Hey, Dave.
Hey, Dave.
Howdy.
Turn your TV off.
There.
I can do that, just like that.
Yeah. Okay.
There you
Thanks.
go.
There. How's that? Now we got quiet.
So next thing in your contest is, I mean, you've got your preferences was set. Mike showed you how to do that. We set up our pilots. We imported. We showed how to create a new pilot, just in case there's some pilots that didn't pre-register. And then we've set up our sequences. The unknowns was already there. We've showed how to import the alternate sequences. We showed how to enter an unknown sequence. You don't necessarily, I enter all my unknown sequences. If we're going to fly them on Sunday, I enter them Saturday night. I don't like going into Sunday morning having to enter unknown sequences. Because some of the contests, they are ready to fly the unknowns, they're ready to fly the known, and people's ready to go home. And I don't want to have to be backed up entering sequences to get that day started. So the next thing that we do is we just enter flight scores. So you enter the flight score tab, and I'm going to pick on Nick again today. So this is what pops up. You got all your pilots to the left, and you see their classes, sportsman, intermediate. If they're unlimited, advanced, it'll also show there. Across the top is your knowns tab, which is automatically the first tab that is already highlighted to start entering. Your unknowns, your freestyle. You've got your judging sheet. This can go up to judge 8. Mainly the judge 8 is for freestyle, since there's more than 2 judges on freestyle contests. So I just leave it on judge 1. One thing you will notice is the auto decimal is already set, and I'll talk about it here after a while when we start entering some scores. I never hit this box reverse round order. That is something that I do not even touch. This right down here I do nothing with. It's just there. So I've got the intermediate class. Me and Nick's going to fly the intermediate class against each other today. So you hit create, edit flight. The box that come up, you see known round 1, sequence 1, judge 1. If you want to create more than just that flight, let's say, you know, it's judge round 1 to start out with. If you've got a contest where you're going to fly 2 sequences per round, change that to a 2. And judge 1 and judge 2. So I can go ahead and create the flights for both judges for both sequences. If you're at a contest that's only going to fly 1 sequence per round, you can leave this at a 1, and then you've already got judge 1 and judge 2 set up. So we're going to fly 2 sequences this round. So I hit judge 1 and then judge 2, and then you hit OK. So judge 1 pops up for Nick. You've got the description of all the figures here. You got your sound and your airspace control, and you got your total K factor value. This is all preset on the knowns. None of this will change. And then R1, S1, that's round 1, sequence 1, and then round 1, sequence 2 for judge 1. So here, you just start entering numbers off your judges' score sheets. I use the down arrow. I'm faster at using the down arrow instead of tabbing. But one thing I really want to stress is when you get to this last number, that airspace control number, I always hit the down arrow again. If this box was to stay here, when you go to print results, that score will not keep. You have to get out of the box for the number to be able to stay. Doug, you want to talk more about that?
Yeah, so if you don't leave the box or the field that you put your last entry in, so she can duplicate it by, in airspace control, put a 9, leave it there, and then switch to Samantha, and then switch back to Nick, and it should be blank.
No, because you hit it, you did it right the first time. That's why it's not.
Yeah, you would have to
keeping it
remove
blank.
the airspace control, leave it blank,
Yeah.
then populate it, and move off of, to another pilot or something.
Don't hit the tub.
So go back to Nick now, or go back to Samantha. Go back to Nick, and it's blank because you didn't move off of it. Does that make sense? Does anybody hear me?
Yep.
So now if she puts a 9,
Everything.
so, and then move off of it, back up to 1, now go to Samantha and go back to Nick, and it'll be there. You have to move off the last field you fill before you switch to anything else in another pilot or, judge. Like she could have left that 9, but not switched off it and switched to Judge 2, come back to Judge 1, and it would still be blank. You just always have to remember to move off of that last entered field. So fill everything in down to 9, but don't move off of number 9, or actually 12. Put one more in, but don't move off of it. Put a 5 in there. Now switch to Judge 2. Switch back to Judge 1. Okay, it is holding between judges, just not between pilots. Take the 5, clear it, move off of it, go back to it and put a 5. Now go back to Samantha, go back to Nick. Well, now it's holding. I don't get that.
No, Doug, because you did it right the first time, so it remembers that the 5 was before. If you hit 8, you'll see that it will return to 5 because the 5 you did it right. If you write 8 right now, write 8. Okay, and no, write 8 with a tub. You see, it goes back.
You're right, Eddie. It's remembering the last correct one. Just a good rule of thumb, always move off of your last entry before you change screens or judges. You still there, Sam?
Yeah. Sorry, I was muted. So we entered scores. He did get a 0 on number 4. The first judge didn't catch it. Everything's entered. I down arrowed to make sure I had everything. So on the score sheet, if you see a 0 and a B, it's a sequence break. So to enter the B, after you enter the 0, come over here to figure edits and hit sequence break. And that automatically throws in that sequence break penalty for that. Most of the time, one judge will write a B, one judge will not. Most of the time, both of them are a B if the other judge scored at 0. If you're not for sure, always ask your contest director. If you don't want to make the call, make sure you always ask the contest director. Don't go and find the judge to ask him. Go to the CD, and then the CD, if he don't feel comfortable making the decision, then let him talk to the judge. If you have, we'll go to the fly edits here. This is also what we were talking about earlier with the missing pilot and panel. If, you know, round 1, sequence 1, he flew his plane, it had pilot and panel, you leave this alone. Let's say sequence 2, we'll enter some scores. If for some reason he flew someone else's plane that is missing the pilot and panel, we'll check the box missing pilot and panel. And for this sequence down at the bottom, you'll see MPP. So this assessed the penalty for this Judge 2, round 1, sequence 2, because he flew this sequence without the missing pilot panel. So this is where we were discussing earlier, you know, if he started the contest with the pilot panel and ended without, or vice versa. This is the box that you would check right here.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. I'm having a problem with my my score. Hold on.
Okay. Anything that we can help you with?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yeah, because I was using a pilot with a basic, so of course it's not going to hit the missing pilot and panel.
Correct. Yes, correct.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. The other flight edit is zeros, the clear button. So let's say I completely goofed in entering, sequence 2 for round 1. I can hit the clear button and it'll clear that whole column to where I can re-enter scores. If sometimes you'll get a score sheets where they dead sticks before they started their first maneuver, so the judges go ahead and write zeros. Instead of typing in all those zeros, you can come under flight edits and hit zeros, and it automatically populates zeros all the way through that sequence. The comment tab, I do not use. I don't enter no comments because that will show up on the report. So I do not enter that. I do not use anything of that. The sequence break, you will use if they, if the judges put in a break penalty. And the comments here, I do not use. And so, is there any questions on entering flight scores? We'll go ahead and enter scores for me. That way there's 2 pilots that has scores to show up on the reports. So I found my name, Samantha McKinney. I'm flying a known. So I hit create edit flight. So I'm going to hit the more tab. I'm in round 1. I'm going to have 2 sequences, so I'll change that to 2. I'm going to have 2 judges. Then we hit OK. So mine automatically populated as well. So here you just enter numbers. I'm entering the down arrow. We're going to throw in a sequence break, so I enter 0. I hit break. I hit the down arrow, 8 and 7. I automatically hit the down. That way it'll save it. So we'll enter scores here. Not a real good round, this sequence. So that's my judge 1. And then you'll come up here to judge 2. So as you can see, I went to enter a 2. I know that's not going to hold. So actually, if I go ahead and enter a 2, I'm going to tab that down, and that number automatically disappears because the K factors 1 through 10 are only half intervals. So unless it's a whole number, a 6, a 4, a 5, or a half, which is 7.5, 6.5, 8.5, that number will not stay. So I'm going to correct it. And this judge here also caught the break. So there's my sequence 1 for judge 2. We're going to enter some more scores here. So now I have all my sequences entered for judge 2, round 1. So is there any questions on entering the known sequences? So we're at the start of Sunday morning. The first round they're gonna fly is their unknown. So let's say Nick flew first, the unknown round. Across the top, I'm gonna go to the unknowns tab. I'm gonna go ahead and change this back to Judge 1. On the bottom of my score sheets too, sometimes the judges put Judge 1, Judge 2. Some of them put their initials. What I do on the first sheet that I entered that would be considered Judge 1, I always write a 1 at the bottom and circle it. On the second score sheet, I write a 2 at the bottom and I circle it. That way I know which score sheet I entered for which judge. That way if the scores need audited, there's an issue, you know which score sheet to go back and look to for what you entered for Judge 1 or Judge 2. So we're going to hit Create, Edit, Flight. This is your unknown round. So you're going to fly, most contests, you're going to only fly 1 round of unknowns. You're going to have 2 judges. So we'll change this to a 2. And we're going to hit OK. One thing different that you will see, there's my K factors, there's the sound, there's the airspace control. The description is blank. On my unknowns, I'm not as familiar with what each maneuver is called. I do not enter a description for my unknowns. There are some contests that will. The unknowns, it's not required to have a description, but the only thing to make sure is that the A factors match that unknown sheet for the correct class. So Nick is intermediate. So I would flip to the intermediate sequence and I would check to make sure all these K factors are correct. And then at the bottom, I add plus 18 on the unknown sequence sheet. And then that total would get me this number right here, because the unknown sequence sheet does not include the K factor values for the sound and airspace control. So I always put a plus 18 or a plus, you won't have one for basic, or a plus 12 for sportsman. So then that number should match right here to what your unknown round is. And Audie, when you're creating yours for that invitational, or that will have 3 unknowns, that is where you need to really double check that this number matches correctly. So
okay. No problem.
We're going to go ahead and enter. You're going to have 1 sequence. It's an unknown round. We're gonna assess the brake penalty. He got a B in that one. And I tabbed too quickly before the number. So there's Judge 1. Judge 2. We'll go ahead and enter the numbers. I see I entered 5-2 by accident again, and the number disappeared. So I know that was wrong. There was a break on this one. So this one, we're going to add a 7-5. Sound and airspace control is is on whole intervals. So that number will not work in that field. So I was a 7-5, so we'll round it to an 8. I'm going to give me a 5 for airspace control. So that's for that pilot, Judge 1, Judge 2. There was no missing pilot panel. It was just regular, no zeros. He didn't completely zero that. I didn't need to clear it. And I entered the sequence break on maneuver 10. So we're going to go back and enter scores for me. So we're going to hit Create, Edit, Flight. We're going to hit More, be Round 1, Judge 1, and Judge 2. I'm going to hit OK. And we're going to enter my scores. One thing that has changed where you'll see the auto decimal, I know a few years ago, like when you would enter a 10 without that auto decimal, that would automatically go to a 1. This is preset in the program now, so you can just enter 10 for a 10, or you can enter just a 1 for a 1. If you enter 10 thinking that it'll convert it to a 1, that is incorrect. It will convert it to a 10 due to the auto decimal that we have preset into the program. So for a 1, I just hit a 1. We're going to enter my scores for Judge 2. And one thing I want to add, Mike, we set preference up to where the score program would save every minute. I have a habit. Anything I change in the score program, I always hit File, Save Dat Files. A minute's not that long, but if there happened to be an issue within that minute, what you've entered is gone. So every time I enter a whole pilots of scores, whether it's mine or Nick's, I always hit the File, Save Dat Files, just as a double check. So that's entering a known and an unknown. Is there any questions on entering flight scores? Doug, Mike, is there anything that you think of that we didn't cover in this part?
I'm good.
Okay. So we know the pilots love to see their results after every round. So we go up to the top left corner of the score program and hit reports, and then you hit results. You'll see the class, the type, which round. So we have intermediate pilot, so I'm going to click intermediate's already clicked. If I wanted, at the end of the day, if I wanted a report for every class, you just check basic, sportsman, advanced, unlimited, seniors. If you wanted them on separate sheets at a time, you would go back and hit reports and then pick each class each different time. So I want the intermediate. The type, if you only, like if you're at the end of the day, Saturday, and you have flown your known and your unknown, if you just want knowns posted, you unclick the unknown tab. And it'll print out the score results with just your known rounds. At the end of the contest, when you want both, this box will be checked. Your rounds, 1 through 20, that will cover all your unknown rounds. If you flew, if maybe your contest was only 2 rounds, it'll cover it. If your contest, let's say you luckily got maybe 6 rounds in, if it was a smaller, pilot class to where you could fly more in 6 rounds. If you leave the minimum and maximum alone, it will cover all the rounds. And like in Audie's case where he's mentioned different unknowns, you can change this to where it'll only populate results for that unknown round. So that is where that would come into play. But this button is not normally ever changed. And now I'm going to have Doug or Mike discuss, because these are 2 new boxes. I'll have them discuss the miscellaneous here and the published results.
The show interim watermark is simply so that you can choose some pre-written ones under examples. So if you hit the down arrow, results after day 1, final results, interim results, or you can type in what you would like. Day 1, knowns only. Anything you put in there is going to come out on the top of the report itself. Just something extra that was added in. The published results is for if you're running like a local web server, you can export the results to an HTTP, like a closed website at the field, where you could shove it up on a display screen outside. There's even the ability now to post it to a www website, but that requires some specific equipment. I only know of one RD that does that in the Northeast. So that's what that second publish is for.
Okay, so I do that at my contest, and I guess my question for you is this going to FTP the file to the web servers, or what service is it using to move the files over to the web server? And I guess at the end, I had a question on using tablets to enter scores, but maybe that's a conversation for a future meeting.
Well, first of all, yes, the publish the results portion, like you could send it to an FTP directory that's uploading the results for you.
Yeah.
So that's
right now. Yeah, right now the way I've been doing it for the last few years is I have a batch script that FTPs the files from the directory to the to the web server. But if I can just leverage this particular, where are the settings for this publish located at?
I'll get you in contact with Dan Carroll. There's actually a configuration file that's in the background, but you got to be very careful with that because it can mess some other things up. He made me aware of. Not rocket science, but I'd rather
I totally understand that. I mean, through the years, I've had integrations with Access applications that would import all the files automatically, and pretty much my application would write the pilot DAT file. So, I understand what goes on in the background in the configuration files.
Yeah, but of course, 99% of who's even on this call would never use this particular option right now.
Sure, I understand.
I wanted to explain why it was there.
Yeah, if you can give me that information, that would help my wife. That way I don't have to keep walking back to the computer to run the script.
Yeah. Drop me an email, if you would, just South Central Regional Director contact button.
Okay.
And I'll get you in contact with Dan.
All right, great. Thank you.
Yep. So uncheck that, Sam, and then go ahead and hit our, OK. So you can see it put up there, knowns only, which was her predetermined message. Also, you'll notice below the normalized scores are the actual points of perfection. So what the pilot flew against perfection as it compares to what it results reflect as to normalized. So we're able to now see how they flew against perfect in all columns: final score, sequence 1, sequence 2, and the unknown, which we apparently had checked.
And then I also wanted to point out, Nick, he's came in second. If you look at his known round 1, sequence 2, that is showing that is the sequence that he flew missing a pilot and panel. So that is where that penalty is assessed. So that is where it shows up on the score page. So when we scroll back over to the first, you'll see that I luckily beat Nick that round, or that contest.
You beat him every time we do this class.
I know. Don't tell him, though. I haven't told him. So I know at every contest, pilots want to see their results. Do not hand out the original score sheets. I don't know. There's still some that do. Some make copies of the original score sheets and hand them to the pilots. But I do really want to stress that the original score sheets should not be gave to the pilots. Reason being is North Central had a contest last year that at the end of the contest or the Saturday, I think it was the end of the contest, the laptop battery, I think, died. And the score program, I think, was in a zipped file too. And all of that data was lost. The only thing they had was the final contest results. So without the score program and its files, we cannot post that to the website for the IRPS, just for pilots to view their results. But when everybody leaves the contests, and if they take those score sheets with them, there's not really a way of getting them back unless you contact every pilot. But then what happens if the numbers was changed or anything like that? So I do really, really, really want to stress, do not hand out the original score sheets. And I'll show you here now how to give them their score results. So let's say Nick kind of got a little aggravated because I beat him, and he wanted to know what he done wrong.
I have a question right before we do this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Why is Nick's name a different color?
That is what I'm getting ready to explain.
Okay.
I think this is probably partly saved because I used me and him in the score training on Monday. But when you go in to review a pilot's score on the results page, so this is the sheet that looks like here. He's got known flight round, judge 1. There's all the figures and the K factors. And then when you scroll over, there's his sequence 1 and sequence 2. And it's like this for every round. So this is what needs to be printed to hand to the pilots who want these. So since I am printing this pilot detail for Nick, when I go back
Before you go back, scroll down to the bottom, because it gives quite a bit more information than the score sheet would give them. Tells them what their, actual score counts are. Like 8 was his most common score. Shows how many low zeros counts he had. Shows his highest score being a 9. It gives more information than just a score sheet would give them.
And that will be at the very bottom of the score sheet. And in one of his rounds, I think unknown flight 1, judge 2, you will see that this maneuver right here was assessed the brake penalty. So there's the BR. And when you scroll up, he was missing a pilot and panel, I believe, in one round. It shows right here at the top, PP. So he was missing pilot and panel that round. And see, we zeroed that round. He ended up having an issue with the plane, so that's where all the zeros show up. So Mark, with your question, I would print this and give this to Nick. So when I create a new report, it will show up like this in red. The only reason why that shows up in red or purple is because I have actually clicked on this pilot and went into the detail of the pilot.
So click on you, yeah.
Click on me. So I'm looking for my scores. Everything looks okay. I'm just looking. So when I click back, I am also in purple.
It's like any web browser. It shows a link that you followed, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay,
So
I understand that.
Yeah. I have some pilots that they don't realize that some of the other pilots in their class request scores, and they don't like it that one pilot is blue and one pilot is red. So I'll just go in and click the name just to get them all the same color. I mean, that's all you got to do on it. So, but one thing I do want to show, if your IMAC number is not into the program, if you entered a new pilot and there's no you maybe forgot to put an IMAC number, or the pilot did not put their IMAC number on the sheet. This right here, IMAC, it will be red. It'll say missing IMAC number. This number is very important when it comes to posting the score results for RPS. I've had a contest that's done that. They failed to get the IMAC number in, and the only way I caught it was I read the story detail and realized that pilot did fly, but his points never posted to that region's RPS site. So this is very important. Not as much the AMA number, but this IMAC number. Without this IMAC number, the scores will not post. So if we scroll over here, I have no red showing up right here. When you print results, you don't want, and I'll show you how it'll show, but there should be no red in these boxes right here. If there is red, there is an issue with the flight scores that have been entered. So to show you guys what I'm talking about, I'm going to go back into the score program and make a change. We'll delete my, let's say I entered my unknown round for Judge 1, but I failed to do it for Judge 2. So I'm just going to delete that off. I'm going to hit Files.
While we're there,
yes.
While we're there, go to your pilot, set up pilot, and remove your IMAC number.
Okay.
Go to Preferences. And include. And yeah, it's already checked. So just hit OK. You don't need to reopen it. Now go ahead and run your report.
We're going to run the report. We're going to hit OK. I'm not going to put no watermarks or anything on it this time. Okay. I'll blow this up. What we were talking about on missing IMAC number, right underneath my name, my AMA number shows up and it says missing IMAC number. This is if the IMAC number failed to get into the score system. So this is something to double check printing score results. The RDs also check because they know that the points won't post for this pilot. But as a scorekeeper, being around all the pilots at the contest, we can always track them down, you know, at the end of the day, Saturday, or before the contest starts Saturday morning, say, hey, I've got to have your IMAC number for the RPS points. If you have a new pilot that will newly join IMAC at a contest, they will not have an IMAC number. This probably will not be issued till probably after the contest. And that's okay. The RD and IMAC Treasurer will handle that, but just make sure to tell the CD we had a new IMAC member registered. He does not have an IMAC number. So that would just reinforce to the CD that I need to make sure that the RD gets the new IMAC number for the pilot in. So then we scroll over because I failed to enter a sequence. So for me, when I go to print the results, I have missing flight scores. So something is wrong in the unknown round. I know that. If there was an issue in the round, in sequence 1 or 2 for the known round, this missing flight scores would be underneath sequence 1 or sequence 2. It would be under here. So these are red flags. Never give the CDs or post results with missing flight scores. This always needs to be fixed. So we can go into the pilot detail to figure out what the problem is. So we know it's my unknown round, so we're going to find the unknown round. Okay, so I have unknown flight, round 1, Judge 1. I have 1. I should have 2. So I have no unknown flight record for round 1, Judge 2. That is my issue. If there was a score missing in one of these rounds, it would be red in the sequence where all these numbers are at. It would be red. So then you know you can go back and pinpoint. So since I know that I completely failed to enter Judge 2, round 1 for the unknowns, I'm going to close the results page. I'm going to go back to me, and I'm going to enter my Judge 2. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit File Save. I'm going to rerun my report. Everything's fine. I'm not going to change anything. And then now, I'm still missing my IMAC number. That's all right. When you go back to unknown, the missing flight scores is gone. That error has been corrected.
Samantha, can I add something?
Yes, go ahead.
It's very important that, let's say that one of the pilots had some issues with the plane and he didn't continue the contests. You should give him zeros for all the other sequences he didn't fly, because if you won't give him scores, zeros, then you'll have a lot of red.
Yes.
So you must, even if the pilots didn't fly, you must, and he's registered, you must give him scores.
Yes, and what Audie was talking about, I'll go back and show you. So I have, we'll pick on Gil. So I'm going to take him off the pre-registered. Let's say he came to the contest, and as Audie said, something happened and he couldn't fly whatsoever. But I'm not going to enter nothing because he's not flying. I don't have no score sheets. I don't have nothing to enter for Gil. So when you rerun the report, we'll enter a round first, and let's say he quits flying.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
I was going to say, realistically, he would have started his first round, something happened,
Yeah.
and then dropped the rest.
Yeah, let's say he dead sticks the rest of it. I'm going to hit File Save. So now when we rerun the reports, that is what Audie's talking about right here. Now, Gil's name is in blue because I have not clicked into his pilot detail. So when you scroll over, there's a missing flight score in sequence 1, which means I probably failed to hit the down arrow or something is missing in his sequence 1. Now, because he dead sticked in the middle of sequence 1, and I did not enter anything, no zeros, no nothing for sequence 2 and the unknown. This is why the missing flight score is showing up. It really helps the RDs when the pilots that end up dead sticking and maybe can't continue the contest to go ahead and enter zeros for their flight scores. The RDs don't know what happens at each contest unless they're there. And if not, they'll be getting back in contact with you to correct this, or you have to call and tell them, hey, you need to enter zeros. It's easier for the scorekeeper just to enter the zeros to zero out those flights. You can I write myself a note on the computer, and sometimes if they're pre-made score sheets, the judges go ahead and write a 0 and then mark a line through it. So that way you know that pilot did not fly that sequence or the round. So we know he flew sequence 1 partly before he dead sticked, but I still have a missing flight score. So I'm going to go in and figure out what the issue is with Gil on what I entered. So we're looking, and there it looks like everything's scored.
Yeah, but you gave him only one judge. That's why.
Correct. Audie got it. I only gave him one judge. There's only one known round from one judge on this score. So now I know I've got to go back and enter the scores for Judge 2, because surely Judge 2 scored the first 5 maneuvers. So we'll go in and check Judge 2. We're going to create edit flight. Give an 8, 5, 4, 6, and let's say the judge just zeroed the rest of it. 8 and 7. We're going to hit File, Save. Okay, we're going to go up to Reports, Results. Everything stays the same. We're going to hit OK. So now, Audie caught that we did not enter Judge 2 for the Sequence 1. So Sequence 1 has been corrected. Missing flight score is there. And we're still missing flight scores for unknown and Sequence 2 because I did not enter the zeros for him. So we go to the knowns. So we know I've only got round 1, Sequence 1. I need to create Sequence 2 for both judges. We're going to zero these out. So you click in the first maneuver, hit 0. I'm going up to Judge 2 and hit 0. So we flew 1 round of unknowns. I'm going to change that back to Judge 1. We're going to create edit flight. We know we've got 2 judges. Hit OK. We're going to zero this round for the Judge 1. Zero this sequence for Judge 2. I'm going to hit File, Save. Everything's okay. We're going to go back, run the report. And then now I have everything corrected for this class, other than my missing IMAC number. But there's no red under any of the knowns or the unknowns. So, anybody have any questions on the reports or anything on the score system so far?
I have something. When you mentioned that North Central contest that was dumping scores, sad to say that was me. And it wasn't, and thanks for all the phone calls. I appreciate that. But it wasn't because I didn't unzip it. It turns out I did not have the absolute latest version of Java. And I would get most of the way through entering scores. The program locked up my computer. I had to restart it. And when I came back, everything was gone. So I went and used a different computer, and I realized that I had not done the Java. Once the Java was updated, everything was fine. Didn't lose anything. So it's very important that when you start this, before you do your contest, you go right in there and make sure you have the latest version of Java. It'll solve a lot of problems for you.
When we add that, go to the help file, Sam.
Okay.
And yeah, right there under prior to contest day, install latest version of Java. And I embedded the link straight to Java latest version without you having to, Google Java install. That takes you directly to java.com for the absolute latest version.
And I'm sorry, Mark, I didn't know, I got bits and pieces of, what happened there. So I do apologize.
Well,
I didn't know for sure what happened there.
The one you're talking about was not Mark's contest. It was
I didn't think it was.
It was a Burn It challenge.
Yeah.
Actually, the Jeff had to go back from the result sheets, and they had to kind of formulate a contest so they could even come up with points. They had nothing. All the score sheets were handed back. So there's one reason why you don't give your score sheets away.
Yeah, that was the contest I was talking about, Mark, was that one. Because Mark, did you call and talk to me?
Yeah, we had, I don't know, 3 or 4 different calls. We were calling around, calling to Doug. and we never did get a resolution. So I had to do the best I could with hand scoring, and on Monday I re-entered everything properly, and everything was great except the unknown changed unlimited and advanced. So I basically got it pretty good. We had to do some trophy swapping and whatnot, but yeah, valuable lesson learned there.
Yeah. No, I was talking about the Burn It Challenge. Myself, Doug, and Mike, and Jeff, we had to come up with a way to get those scores to post based off the final contest results, and that was fun. Trying to do that, but yeah, stuff happens. Mike's gonna go through and show you here how to save at the end of the day. Just in case you are working in a zip folder and haven't, and before you shut the score program down, we're going to walk through that on how Mike does it. That way, if you restart your program Sunday morning, if your data's not there, you've got a file saved to pull it back into the score program where you don't have to re-enter. But is there any questions before we have Mike do that? I know one of the biggest problems with the score folder is unzipping the folder. When you first download it, it looks like that is the folder that you're going to start scoring with. I mean, it really is. I mean, it looks exactly like it. But it is a zipped file, and that, I mean, when you contact me or Doug or Mike, that even though you've done it right, that is the first question that we will ask, is to make sure that it's out of the zipped file. That way we can diagnose the issues from there.
Because actually, if you take the zip folder that you downloaded, open it, it's still going to say score. I can drag that out to my desktop. Let me get it where you can see it. So all I did was drag it out of the zip folder. Technically, this is not unzipped. Okay, you need to physically do it.
I disagree. That is unzipped.
It is?
Yep.
Well, I wouldn't trust it.
I would. That's unzipped. You when you pulled it out, it uncompressed it.
Oh, did it? Okay.
Yeah, so go back to your zip. Double click. Now double click on that folder. See how your path still shows the encryption? That's what shows you you're still in the zip. Run score from there. It'll run. Oh, no, it won't either. So maybe Dan fixed that too. Oh, now look, there it goes.
Yeah, that's the same thing that happened to me.
Yeah. So enter a name for a contest, pick a region, and save. Go ahead.
So just
see the name.
Give me a lot of error
there,
messages.
Right? See your name up there, so close it. But you see how you don't have that all file down here? Double click it again.
It just starts like a new contest all
Right.
over again.
That's the difference. Now, if you do the one on your desktop, it's going to work normal because you dragged it out of the zip.
Okay. Let's see if I got a contest somewhere.
Well, just the one oh okay, I see. Yeah.
I don't have anything with any information.
But when you dragged it out of that encrypted folder, that's essentially uncompressing it.
Okay, I mean, that's good to know. Do we have any test files left in here, Doug?
Go to NATS. Go to the ZNATS folder.
All right, let's do the prelims. Okay. Say it's Saturday evening, you're getting ready to shut down. Just as a precaution to make sure everything is going to shut down okay and restart, and you have no issues. What I want you to do, and I can show you while this is open. Okay, we've got the score program. We want to shut down and end for the day. What I'm going to do is go back to the file. I'm going to copy the data directory. Put it on my desktop. And keep that. All right? That is my insurance that come Sunday morning when I show back up to the field and open up the score program that everything will be fine. Say Sunday morning I came in, we get ready to go, I open the program, and it's just like, I think I got two of them going here.
No, you're all right. That's the one you uncompress. So go ahead and copy your contest prefs over.
So Sunday morning, I open the program, get it right started, and say, hey, what happened? I've got nothing. Everything disappeared. That's not good. But to save yourself Saturday evening, you save that data directory. There's what's going to save your butt. You can go back to
close the program.
Yeah, you can go back to the data directory. Take my contest prefs, drop it in my data folder.
Go to data. Go to data.
Why?
Because we have a different directory structure between 414 and 425. So go to data. You'll have to drop. Yeah, you have to drop that into dir now.
Yeah, it's in a different folder.
Just up. Yeah.
Yeah. So
now you
I could start the program. All the preferences I had the day before are going to be there. So we've got the name of the contest is already up there. Everything we set will stay the same. So in this order, you must create, and it has to be in this order. The program must have sequences. So we got all these. That's in the base one, but we have, we've entered our unknowns already. We don't want to have to do it again. So what we're going to do is import from the file. We're going to go back to the desktop. I'm going to find that data directory folder. And and I'm going to import the sequence data. It brought in all the unknowns, so I don't have to sit and re-enter any of those. So that's what you do first. Next, you go to the setup pilots. Again, it must be done in this order. You can't do it backwards or switch them around because the program only reads in this order: sequences, pilots, flight scores. Go back to my desktop, open that. Now, I need the pilots to come in. It's going to bring in 42 pilots. Hit OK. We got all our pilots back. We enter flight scores. We're going to import. This is the last thing we have to do. Go back to that desktop, open that folder, and bring in flight data. You only need that one file. Hit open. It's going to bring in 1,008 records that was input the day before.
Welcome to the Nats.
Yeah. So we've entered all that. Now we can see we're right back. I can click on these pilots. Everything is right back to where it should be. Grabbing that data folder before you shut that program down at the end of the day is going to save you a lot of headaches. Once you shut it down, if there was an issue, now saving the pilot data or the directory is not going to do you any good. It's got to be done before you close the program.
Mike, will you go ahead and do that one more time? Not the whole thing, but saving the data.
Okay, we'll do it from here. Before I shut that program down, I'm going to go to my score folder, the one I'm running out of. You can see here at the bottom, scores running. This is the one I'm scoring in. All you have to do is go to that data folder, right mouse click, hit copy. Okay?
Gotcha.
You can take it, just drop it on your desktop. If you want to put it on a thumb drive and take it with you, that's fine if you're worried about your computer disappearing. You know, because you can always put the score program on any computer, take that data directory, and start the program right back where you were. So I just paste it here. That's my backup.
Gotcha.
Anybody have any questions about that? That's going to save you a lot of headaches. Just don't, you know, like when you start the program, set your preferences, even to the point that you enter the first pilot. Even after you've entered the first pilot, if you want to shut the program down and boot it back up and make sure that pilot scores are still there, then do it. Don't wait till you've entered half a day and the computer shut down and, well, you found out you didn't start the program right in the first place. But at any point during the day, if you feel uncomfortable, take a copy. Just take a copy of that data file and put it somewhere. You can always take that folder and rename it if you want. You know, this is round 1 and 2. You know, then do 1 for 3 and 4, or whatever you want to do, or 1 through 4. But you can keep an ongoing backup if you want.
Mike, I have a question.
Yeah.
Can I put all 4 files into the data and not contact them through the program itself?
You can, but I'm showing you how to import.
Okay.
You're better off to import it. Yeah, you can drop it in.
But the best way is to import.
Yes, I would just import it and do it in order. It's gonna teach you a few things that is how to import. You know, how the program is actually working, how things need to be imported. There's a particular order. You know, I can't enter flight scores. I can't import flight scores without any other information. See, I did it before I did pilots. Well, I don't have any pilots to assign those flights to. So
I understand. Okay, no problem.
Yeah,
I think what Eddie's referring to, Mike, is as RDs, we get the 4 files.
Well, yeah, we know how to deal with them as RDs.
Right. I grab the 4 files, create a new score directory, open it, close it, and then copy all 4 files into my data directory at once.
Yeah.
And it works the same, but your way just kind of gives a step-by-step. You know, you're making sure they're all coming in at one, individually.
Yeah. As RDs, we deal with the score program on a weekly basis. So, we learn shortcuts. We know how to fix things that the scorekeeper that for the very first time at a contest has never really used this program.
Right.
So it's just going to teach them how to get themselves back out of trouble.
No problem. Thank you.
Anybody have any other questions? Now's the time to ask.
Just as a scorekeeper at the end of the contest, of course, your responsibility is to provide the CD with those, either the score folder in its entirety or those 4 DAT files that Mike just showed you. That's what's needed on our end to be able to post them.
Yeah, once you're done, the only thing that the CD needs to do, now you can take this folder, right mouse click, compress it if your email provider lets you send compressed folders, because there's no application here. It's just data files. Or if you want to get...
Yeah, if your email rejects it, then it's the flights.dat, sequences.dat, contest preferences.dat, and flights.dat.
Yeah, so as far as emailing, if you just... I'll say I'm going to send Doug those files.
Okay.
I just composed my email. I'll send them to Doug. Score files. Attach files. I'm going to go back to that program. I think it was this one. Yeah. So all I have to do is open that data directory. It's as simple as doing this. Just
Copy and pasting.
Yeah, drag across the 4 and just send them. They'll upload separately. A lot of flight data in that, Doug.
Yep. And that's just the first 3 days.
Yeah. Or like I did, I also compressed it. If we can go back to the desktop. Trying to see, where did I put that? Here. I can also, if your email will allow it, I can just send the whole directory as a zip folder. So once you got that, that's all your RD needs. He will do the rest. Everybody understand that? That's pretty simple.
Yes, sir.
Any more questions?
Shrink it. No, Mike, I think you stressed the most important part, which was to make a backup copy of that directory, of the data directory, before you close the program. I'm sure that you've seen it as well as I have, that it's to be a very daunting task to lose everything.
Yeah, it's.
We encountered a problem and I lost everything.
Yeah, we receive a lot of phone calls. People panicking.
Yeah. And you know something? On our end here, what triggered it was that my wife did not define any unknowns, and then created sequences for scoring in the unknowns. So there weren't any unknown sequences defined, but yet the program allowed her to create a score for the unknown, and that created an error in that file. So she couldn't open, close, do anything.
Yeah, some of them I've seen, they go in and they try to clone. They don't know what to select, so they'll clone a known sequence, switch it to an unknown, and then get confused, grab the wrong sequence.
Oh, yeah. And then
grab a known sequence, treat it like it's an unknown, and all their flight scores they entered for the known is gone.
Yeah.
So, if you need a sequence, create a sequence. Stay out of the cloning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now you'll lose track of it. So, that's probably the biggest issue I see, Tony, is the inexperienced scorekeepers getting into that sequence file and changing things they should.
Yeah, exactly. And like in my case, I normally am the one that creates the sequences, but I got the wife sitting in on the class here so that she knows how to do all the setup and everything that I normally do.
That's good.
And if she has any questions, if she gets to a contest and have any questions, she's more than welcome to call me, or most time I'm at contests, there's only a few I don't get signal, and I can always walk her through it.
Yeah, no, and Samantha, she's been doing score since the first version.
Okay.
And she, it's always been the data entry part of it, and not necessarily setting up sequences and she'll modify pilot data, because one thing that didn't get mentioned early on was for you to utilize the Form 10 and 11 for AMA, you got to make sure that the address of the pilots are in there, so it sends the correct information to AMA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
but Tony, they don't use that form anymore.
Oh, that's right. They did away with it last year.
Right. It's a 10B now.
Right. It's right now. All we do is it's now one and the same: the sign-in sheet and the form that we send back.
Right.
So, yeah.
I think we actually removed Form 11 from the SCORE program.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Guys, I appreciate the class, but I will let him do all the sequences, and I'll just stay into the scoring portion. I do not want to learn much more than what I need to. I don't want that much responsibility.
I would recommend just watching him. I mean, just watching someone entering them, even helps too.
Samantha, I really don't even want to go to the contest. I'm just forced every year to go, okay? I'm trying to do the best that I can.
Make her an offer she can't refuse.
Hey, there needs to be more wives going to these contests. So.
Yeah.
I tell you, she's my godsend. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be able to fly IMAC or even do a contest.
They lock me into a room and they don't let anybody talk to me or interrupt, and it's the most boring thing for so many hours.
Oh.
Lighten up, Tony.
I don't even see the contest, so I don't want to go.
My first year at the Nats, I scored, and I was after the Nats was over, I was questioned how come I was outside of the trailer watching everyone fly more than what I was entering scores in the trailer.
Oh.
So I kind of
boring.
I enjoy it. My husband, my son, and I we've done this for years. We've all traveled together. I got into scoring probably about 4 or 5 years back, but we really enjoy it. I get razzed because I'm outside watching more than entering scores. But like at the
enter them so quick.
At the Nats,
if you enter them quick, you have time to watch.
Yeah. At the Nats, my husband actually takes me up there and drops me off with the camper, and then he has to come back home and work. So at the Nats, I'm up there all by myself with Mike and Doug and Alan. I got everybody to take care of me, but I really enjoy it.
I'm not at that point.
Yeah, I'm also a caller now for my husband too. So I
have to give her some pointers. I've been trying to get her to travel with me and call her. Oh, you're on the right wavelength here.
No.
The only thing I refuse to do is judge. So.
Thank you so much, though.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks everybody for attending.
Guys, thank you very much.
See ya. Audie, if you have any questions on entering more, get a hold of us.
Yeah, no problem. It's very important. Thank you very much.
If you
Learned
can't
a
get
lot.
hold of Sam, call me. My number's out there everywhere, so don't be afraid.
Yeah, guys, don't forget that I've sent you quotes for the challenge coin. Please.
The last
watch
one
them
looks
and-
great.
Yeah, I love them. But
I like the proofs on the straight silver. That looks like a good one, Audie.
yes, and I've sent them another question. I want them to make a diamond cut on the edges, just to make it even much more special. Let's see how the quote. Yeah, so we'll see.
Well, right now we're looking at less than $6 a piece. So.
Yeah, with the case, it's nothing. It's very cheap. So
they look good.
It's up to us then.
Yeah.
Okay, see you soon at the near meeting.
Alrighty. See ya.
See ya.
Bye bye. Have a good day.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.
I think today's went a lot better.
Yeah, it was good.